She's a brilliant event planner. She's so talented and just started her events business. And yeah, she's been here since she found us.
Okay, Grace, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All righty, so I think we can get started. It's 7:04. Thank you very much for joining us online on Zoom and for following our e-meetup on Facebook Live and or replaying our events. I know that some of you will be replaying this event in your own time. So thank you very much for joining us. Quick introductions before we introduce our guest speaker today. My name is Ariane. I'm the founder and director of a small business consultancy firm for entrepreneurs. And together with the lovely Grace and initially Rosanna and Lissy, who couldn't join us today, we are the Gaia Network. And I'm going to pass over to Grace if you want to briefly introduce what we do to the people who have just joined us online and are watching us.
Yeah, I'll introduce myself quickly. My name's Grace and I am the founder of Dramed. It's a creative education company which goes into schools and nurseries and teaches through performing arts. And with Ariane, we created the Gaia Network to just support other women in our community who are exploring self-employment as an option, who are considering starting a business or have started a business and are in quite, I mean, there can be any stage in their business, but I guess we've attracted women who are in the early stages of their business and exploring it. And we've been doing that for 2 years now. This year we got part funded by the Big Lottery Community Fund.
Yay!
And yay! And yeah, we meet up twice a month and deliver events in Brentford and Ealing, just learning and growing.
Absolutely, and we have a mix of guest speakers who come and join us to share their amazing inspirational stories and help us and all our members grow through their journey. And we also have speakers coming to share practical tips on specific subjects. Such as self-development, but also accounting, more about the numbers and more serious things like that. So tonight is one of our meetup. We have moved over our events online for the last few sessions, isn't it, Grace?
Yeah.
So is it our third session online?
Yes.
So it's our third session online, and tonight we have the lovely Claire Bourne joining us as a guest speaker. So let me introduce you, Claire, and please do correct me if I get anything wrong. I think you deserve a good introduction because your story is simply amazing. So Claire Bourne is the founder of Eden Organic and Eden Fitness, a branch of boutique fitness, not only in West London, but in Ireland. She's been featured in a lot of different newspapers, such as the Irish Times, the Independent, the Health Club Management magazine. Her business has also been shortlisted as Health Club of the Year. And not only is she an amazing entrepreneur, business owner, she's also a wife and a mom of 2 beautiful girls. She'll tell us all about this work-life balance. And she has a big vision for her business, and she will share all that with us. So the first question, welcome, Claire.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be part of your wonderful group tonight.
Thank you, Claire, for joining us. And the first question, we'll get started cracking and interviewing you, Claire. How did you get into doing what you do today with your business, Eden Fitness and Eden Organic? How did it all happen?
It's actually very a funny journey. When I was a teenager, I reckon I was probably 17 or 18. I think I was in second year university. I must say my internet doesn't seem very stable up here. So if you are experiencing a problem with the internet, let me know, and I will journey downstairs and kick the family out the lounge. So let's get back. So I think I was in second year university, so probably 17, I think I was. And I had a vision for a holistic hub of health. Over the next year or so, I had, and I was studying human sciences anyhow. So as part of one of the curriculum modules for that was human science and exercise science. And it really inspired me and gave me a passion to start researching a business plan for how I could bring a center like this together. And I probably worked in it for more than a year. I remember all of my spare time doing a lot of research and, you know, figuring out how things could work. And the vision was amazing. It was in the shape of a beehive, and it was holistic health. So there was everything in that center, from a medical doctor to a dentist, to an osteopath, a chiropractor. There was a nutritionist in there. It was all in a hub around a health club. And there was a spa section as well with massage and relaxation and all that jazz too. So I had some, in order to earn money to pay my way through university, I was working as an aerobics instructor at the local, I think it went through a few things. It used to be a Health and Racket, and then it became a Virgin Active a very long time ago in Port Elizabeth in South Africa. They were very good to me, and I worked for them for a very long time. And one of the clients there was so impressed with my business idea and what I'd done. And there was some work being done at the time to develop a new casino complex on the beachfront. So there was a talk about me being able to secure some of the space there. And we had another client who was an architect, so he offered to draw up the plans, and it was getting very exciting when my very beautiful but rather naive boyfriend at the time was encouraged by another of his clients. He was a personal trainer in the club, to hand over my business plan and the architect plans. And when I came home to work on them and they were not there, I was rather annoyed, surprised, and even more furious when I found out what he'd done with them, because he'd handed them over to this individual who was less than ethical. And that was the last I saw of them. I never got it back. This man was a multimillionaire. And within a few months, the ball was rolling for the exact health club to be set up in a town about 400 kilometers away, which is where he had his family business. So that was a very big learning curve for me. I was very, very upset, but not for long, because I knew I had the ability to do what I'd done. And actually, in hindsight, all of it was so, how can I say, it felt a bit too good to be true. It was a dream, and it was working, and I obviously had the network, and I had the gift of the gab, and I could research and put things together. But I always kind of wondered how people would take this business set up by a 17-year-old. Well, at that time I was 18. Anyhow, so I put it to bed for a while. I forgave my very silly boyfriend. And I got back to my studies. So I just endeavored to do the best I could in my degrees. I went on to do another degree in industrial psychology, because I figured that could help me as well. And then years down the line, like in between, I became, I always joke that I was a drug dealer, because I was a pharmaceutical rep for a very long time. And so I used to travel around the country selling drugs to doctors and pharmacists. And yeah, that's a whole other story.
It's very, very far from what you're currently doing with Eden Organic.
Exactly. Well, it was very interesting, because I always wondered why I had this real dichotomy of experience in my life. And I think that in hindsight, I would never have changed it, because in order for me to excel and drill down to the real nitty-gritty of what I need to do now, and also when it comes to my children's health, my health, and also knowing what's going on in the world today, and there is a minefield of maniac chaos happening out there. it was really useful for me to work in that industry and to know how to find the information, who's who in the zoo, how things work, more importantly. And I think we're headed for a very big revolution when it comes to how all of that jazz occurs. But we'll shift forward to 2009. And I had been married for just under a year. And I was working as a surgical rep. So I was in the surgical field. I worked with spinal surgeons, neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, maxillofacial surgeons. The company I worked for was a really fantastic company that was a spin-off entrepreneurial adventure, really, from 2 universities in London. And they developed an incredible crystal structure that mimicked a bone scaffold. So it was really successful at growing bone in patients where you needed to fuse bones. So I worked with these surgeons for, I think I did that for about 4.5 years. And then it got to a point, and this had never happened to us before, but I'd worked in hospitals for years and years and years. And suddenly in that year, there was an email that came through saying we needed to take this vaccine for work because we worked in hospitals. It was a hepatitis B vaccine. Never questioned it. I worked for the people. I believe that these things save the planet, and I loved my job. So I just found it quite odd that I'd still joked with one of our admin people saying, you know what Hep B is, right? Like, do you know how you get hepatitis B? I don't know how you figure I'm selling your product, but I don't do any of those things. Okay, so I'm not really in a high risk group. And I was told that if you value your job, you take the vaccine. Absolutely. No questions asked. And very shortly after taking it, I'd say within the next 4 or 5 days, and at the point I never put 2 and 2 together, to be honest. I didn't feel well. I felt actually horrendous. I got very severe flu symptoms, became very tired. The fatigue got worse and worse. And then when I had the booster shot 3 months later, it almost took me out. I still didn't put 2 and 2 together. It took me a long time to figure out, and a lot of alternative therapists and doctors who were trying to work out why someone who was, number one, so healthy, like someone I never got sick, but also who, very intelligent women, suddenly reduced to not being able to, I lost my vision. That was temporary. Thank God that came back. I didn't think it would. I couldn't walk and I couldn't talk. And it took me a good year to be able to do both of those things again, to a level where I was kind of functional in a situation in a group. But it meant that I ended up having to leave my job because I couldn't hold a conversation with any surgeon. I couldn't drive a car. I couldn't handle any stressful situations. I just couldn't process what had to come first and what had to come next. Any conversation was really frustrating for me. I couldn't work out what word had to come next. And just not being able to walk kind of stopped me doing a heck load of things. So
and this,
it was.
Sorry, Claire, and that wasn't the first time in your life that your life was at risk. It was the second time, wasn't it? Just rewind back to the first time, because I know the story, but I'd like you to share that story as well. The first time where you escaped, your life was threatened.
Yeah, well, when I was, you can probably hear by my accent, I'm not British. I'm British now. I'm very proud to be British now. But I am born in South Africa, very proud to come from South Africa. And when I was 14 years old, I was working in a restaurant, just a summer job. Well, it was actually a winter job at that point, a holiday, vacation job. It was July. I don't even know what year it was. I was 14. There was about a year or 2 of my life at that point that really I don't remember a hell of a lot from. But I know that I was at this job and there were some guys that came in and robbed the place. There were 5, there was actually 6 in the group, but the 6th guy was downstairs ready to drive away. And there were 5 guys that came in. There's a much longer story. I'll just make it really short for you. 5 guys that came in with really heavy weapons, massive pangas, handguns, and really big guns as well. And unfortunately, I was the person that let them into the restaurant because they came in as if they were going to be dining. And just by their behavior and also by their communication, I figured that something wasn't quite right. I remember walking back through to the hub of the restaurant to go and tell my manager, can we please just keep an eye on this situation? I don't feel that everything is kind of kosher going on here. And the one guy was following me. He heard me say this and whacked me over the back of the head with the butt of his gun. And I thought it was one of the waitresses who was playing around. So when I turned around and looked down the barrel of the gun, I just couldn't actually imagine that this was happening to me. I was quite angry at him. I think it's definite. I'd learned about fight and flight and freeze for you know, different science lessons, but to actually experience it in real life is something quite out of this world, to be honest. And I'd been quite a timid child up until then. I was always the smallest in my class, really quiet and just keep quiet, stay out of trouble, you know, do what I have to do it well. Wow, did this little line come out of this little girl? I was so mad at that man. I'm definitely a fighter when it comes to that. I wouldn't recommend it. There is apparently therapy you can do called repurling to not fight when it comes to a situation like that. It's not the smartest thing to do at all. But as the adrenaline hit, that's what I did. I gave the guy a hell of a lot of grief. To cut a long story short, they were interrupted. At that point, I'd been pretty beat up by this guy. And as they were running out, I remember one of them saying, you know, they'd better take her out in much worse language than that because she promised she will identify us. And I remember being held in the manager's arms and he said to me, don't worry, it's over. And I was like, it's not over. As I heard that, I just turned around. And the restaurant that it used to be a Mike's Kitchen, which is a very famous chain from South Africa. And they were famous for these very big arched windows. And that's what I remember, seeing this guy through there, pointing the gun at both of us. And that's the last I remembered of that situation. And I either passed out from fear or Craig jumped with us into the next room. I have no idea. But when we came around, there had been bullets fired. They'd hit the wall behind where we were standing. And to this day, makes me realize I'm here for a purpose because I'm still here. So it took me a long time.
That was the first time that you realized how precious life is, isn't it?
Very much so.
And then the second time after the vaccine.
That's right. Yeah, I did. I fought for my life. After the vaccine, I fought for my life for, I think it was close on 4 months. It was definitely more than 3 months. But I remember having to be checked. I was on like something called a heart attack alert risk, a list. And I remember my husband not sleeping a hell of a lot during that time. I remember going to sleep most nights and then I'd wake up with him leaning really close over my face, like trying to listen if I'm breathing. And I was like, if you want to take me out, just do that. You know, that is the most frightening thing to open your eyes to. So he'd learned to then take my pulse and just check, is she still alive? But this poor man, really, I can imagine. For me, I'd had a very beautiful experience very early on in being sick. And I, of course, was very scared because I didn't know what would happen to me. And I am very, very grateful for my beautiful, deep relationship with Jesus. I'm a daughter of God. I absolutely love that I have that amazing joy and peace and guidance. It is on many occasions and more recently, exactly so, the only thing that gets me through. So I was praying at the time. We're now talking about after the vaccine. And I remember on one night, I had either a near-death experience or a realize you want to live experience. But it was as if Jesus was sitting on the end of my bed. And when I opened my eyes, my nana was sitting next to him. And my nana had passed over she was not with us on this side of the world anymore. And I'd never experienced that situation before. So I was so terrified. I thought she'd come to fetch me. And I was like, oh, please, I'm not ready to go. Please, don't, I love you, but please go. And I turned over hoping that she would just disappear. And when I turned back, I don't even know how long it was later. It felt like ages. She was still there. She was so quiet. And when I just said, I don't want to go. I'm not ready to go. And at that point, but Charlie and I had been married for almost a year. We were trying for a child. Nothing was happening. He says he kind of heard what was happening. And I think he was so terrified because he thought I was going to go as well. I was talking to my nana, who he knew was gone. And all she did was put her hand on my leg and she said, you needed to go through this in order to know you were going to beat it. And you will survive this and you will have your babies one day. And for me, that was very early on. So for me, I knew I was going to survive the situation. But for Charlie, he didn't, know if he would wake up and not have me one morning. So there's been quite a lot that we've gone through that very, very early on in our relationship. Charlie had founded, I wanted to actually give him some of the credit for Eden, because Eden was his baby. He had owned a health club further down the road for quite some years. That was an amazing story, very inspirational person, my husband is. And he had decided to build Eden, and I was one of the first members to join. And he had always vowed and declared that he would never date a staff member or a member, ever. And so it was a long time before him and I actually ended up realizing, or we'd realized that we cared for each other, that he had the courage to break his code. So there's a bit of a fairy tale in the beginning.
So how long was this, Claire? How long ago was that?
So Charlie and I met probably the tail end of 2006, because that was when I went to go and see Eden and tour it. But it was only due to open on the 8th of January 2007. I remember that. So from January, we kind of seen each other a few times, because we could go in and experience a few experiences of the health club before the main doors towards the health club were open. The first area, Ariane, you've seen it, of our health club is a cocktail bar.
Beautiful, beautiful area. It's really a boutique gym. It's like a spa. There is a swimming pool. It's amazing. When it goes back to normality, you need to do a big party and invite us all, Claire.
I will definitely do that. You're on. It's a date. I would love that. Yeah. We went to the health club the other night because we needed to just check on the plant room and certain things. And I'd gone with Charlie for the first time. I just cried when I walked in the club. It was so dark and quiet, and there's usually so much life in there, and my staff are like my family, and I thrive off of their hugs, and it's just like a ghost town. So I just absolutely cannot wait for this lockdown to be over.
You have, so from, was it 2006? How did the business develop from there, Claire?
Okay, so in the very beginning, I'd always said to Charlie that I would help with whatever he needed, and very often there was instructors who couldn't make classes, and I'd just jump in to teach a class because I had that experience. But I was still obviously working for the surgical industry at that time. It was only when I got sick, really, and once I got better, and I'd then realized what had made me sick. Also at that point, the company I'd worked for had sold, and I had been one of the founder members, very minor founder member, but it meant that I had a certain amount of shares in the company, and in order for me to get my shares out that I'd worked so hard for, they made me sign a waiver that I could never sue them for anything. I never realized at the time, and maybe they didn't realize. I'm not sure. I don't think that was a standard thing. I don't know why anyone would go back and sue someone who didn't exist anymore, but it meant that I couldn't do anything about being really losing 4 years of my life to that vaccine injury. So I didn't want to go back to the pharmaceutical industry. I didn't want to go back to the surgical industry. I felt that at that point I have to be very careful how I say this. There is a lot of good that comes from many of the reps I used to work with were very caring, and like me, were very intent on being very ethical and truthful about the information that they handed over to doctors, and in helping doctors to prescribe the correct drug for the right patient. But I'd also come across way more situations where that wasn't the case. And there was a lot of bribery about how they were bribed to get thousands of prescriptions and being taken on fancy golfing holidays. And when we were told, when the industry was told they couldn't bribe doctors anymore with golfing holidays and nice dinners and weekends away, then they started bribing practices with, you know, equipment that the practices need. So it never stopped. You know, it was never, and I don't think today, I think it's even worse today, you know, very high up. It's not an ethical, it's not a truthful, there is no real science. You know, no one can ever say science is settled. That is a complete dichotomy of what science is about. Science is never settled. Science is always about exploration. And when you find something better or more interesting, or importantly, dangerous, you need to steer away and get to a better course. And that hasn't been happening for quite some time. But I decided I did not want to work for this industry at all anymore. And so I started helping out. I'd had a degree in industrial psychology, brushed off the cobwebs from the brain, and just started being there for the staff members and helping out where I could. And so it developed from there, really, in terms of how we rebuilt certain areas of Eden. And then also with all of the research I started to do over the period of time about the dangers of toxins in our life. So as I realized that that's what almost took me out, I started voraciously learning about toxins everywhere, toxins in our cosmetics, toxins in our cleaning products that are around our house with our children, and all the ones that are especially marketed that, you know, to sterilize everything because these children cannot barely put something dirty in their mouth, are the worst. Kids need, you know, dirt and germs, and that's how their immune systems develop intelligence. Yeah, so it just opened my eyes in a very new light. And so now my life is taking a completely different direction. And I was so horrified by the level of toxins in cosmetics, lipsticks, foundations, body creams, you know, boob lifting creams, everything, you know, it's just laden with really bad chemicals. And I thought to myself that if I could utilize our situation at Eden by doing a lot of research on different products, if I could have like a curated boutique where at that point I had this beautiful friend who was really passionate about what I was doing and wanted to join me on the adventure. So we researched quite a few things together. She was very talented at marketing and social media. I did a lot of the research, and the point was for our members, because we have around 3,000 members at Eden in London, for them to have a place where they knew that everything they bought from Eden Organic was clean. They're even down to the source ingredients in our protein shakes. Protein shakes are vilely toxic products. And so I really scoured the earth. Like, some of our stuff comes from Europe, some from America, some from, just to get the cleanest protein shakes, the cleanest health bars, the cleanest energy drinks, the cleanest coffee, the cleanest, you know, alternative milks that you can think of. I got so deep into this that I was phoning manufacturers to find out where they got their rice from, where their rice paddies were, and what testing they were doing on the rice as it was planted, as it was harvested. And it really shocked me that the majority of protein products, health products, are from really second-rate, quite dirty rice. All of the good, they say like first, when you take the first harvest, and the first part of that residue really goes to like cereal companies like Nestle, and they get all the good stuff. And then you get some rice that comes out of that as well that we can cook. And if it's an organic company, they get that. And then all the sludge that's left, that's full of all the heavy metals and all the rubbish, goes to protein shake companies. And so I really did a lot of work to source super clean protein shakes, and collagen. It's another thing, to source really clean collagen, grass-fed collagen, so important. So this became my new baby. I was so passionate about trying to find clean products and to create a space where our members could buy things freely and not have to worry about doing all the research for themselves.
When did you when was it founded, Eden Organic?
Eden Organic, well, it was about 18 months in the making before that, with all the research that went into it. But I should actually know this very well, because it would have been when I fell pregnant with my second child. After we tried for ages and nothing was happening, I decided to go ahead and set up my business. And we had 2 launches, the cosmetic launch and the supplement launch. And the day after my supplement launch, I found that I was pregnant with Ella.
Amazing.
So we launched Eden Organic in 2017.
And so you haven't stopped there. You've been very much involved in managing the center on day to day with your staff and everything, isn't it? I know that you talk about your staff, as you would your children almost.
No, I adore them and I miss them desperately. Yeah, it was a bit organic how it all came about, because I think, most of the time, they say like successful people aren't born talented or skilled. They just work hard and they become successful on purpose, like just of making yourself of service and reaching out wherever you can. And it was a bit like that for me with Eden, because I obviously started like that in the beginning, helping out where I could. And then in back end of 2016, it was a very funny story how we ended up getting a site in Dublin. We'd flown over to say, no, thank you. We don't think that this is for us. And it was in like 20 seconds, my husband and I looked at each other, realized the location was incredible, and said, I actually said to her, I'm not sure how we're going to do this, but we'll do it.
You'll figure it out on the way when you come.
We figured it out very much on the way. So it was just, let's say, fortunate or unfortunate, maybe a bit of both, that when Ella was very, very little, Charlie was already traveling over to Ireland. And because Ella was so little and because I was breastfeeding, it just made it very impossible for me to continue flying backwards and forwards. So people who know me know that I do love business and I love all this stuff, but my children are my everything. So there was no ways I was going to give up breastfeeding for this business opportunity at all. And so he was over, I was here. And so even though Ella was little, I ended up needing to be more of a presence at the Eden in London. And so that's what I did.
And become their mother as well.
Yes.
Loads more children.
Lots of babies.
So tell us, Claire, I'm guessing that COVID-19 has definitely affected your businesses. Has your focus shifted? What have you taken out of the last 6 weeks as a business owner? What is your current focus, Claire? And maybe also sharing some of your tips as a business owner and a wife and a mom.
Okay. Well, again, the magnanimous role change and shift it almost floored me because it went from, say, 2 months ago, basically, building the empire and, being a leader, to all of these staff and having really intelligent conversations all day. And it went very, very quickly. In fact, I'd say there was probably a change around January, because in January, my mom got very sick, and Ariane knows the story to this because you literally saved me. My mom got very sick. My mom is my rock in my life. She is the most amazing woman, and just so selfless and so much, so kind, and wants to be of service all the time. I've been trying for ages to teach her, try and do some things you really want to do. I can invite her over for tea and she'll end up stacking my dishwasher. I'm like, please just sit down and drink the tea. So she's a beautiful woman, and very in love with my children. And she developed breast cancer, and my mom's one of the personal trainers in our health club. She is super tough, really fit. She runs these insane, amazing races around the world. The one race she ran was, it's called the Washi 100 miler. It's 161 kilometers.
Amazing.
You start at 5 o'clock on a Friday night, and the cutoff time is 7 o'clock on a Saturday night. And you run through the night in quite rough terrain in Africa. And she did that. That was an incredible story. There was 14 of us seconding her. And we had 2 different cars, one that went up ahead. There was everything that every now and then there was a bath for her in a bucket. And there was lipstick to put on her at the end. My mom doesn't wear makeup, so it was a bit of a joke. Everything she wanted to eat, from boiled potatoes to boiled eggs to champagne, was available for her. And one car stayed with her, one car went on ahead, and we kept swapping, with one of us running with her every single kilometer of the way. There was a man running that race who we got to talk with, because he was running it without shoes on. And when I was chatting with him, I was like, man, you are unbelievably strong-minded, emotion, physical. Where are your shoes? And he said he can't afford shoes. And I was like, but who's seconding you? He doesn't have seconders. So I said, but where is your food? Where is your nutrition? And he said he had started at the end, and he had walked the journey backwards, leaving his energy drinks and bananas in specific bushes along the way. And then he started the race and ran it forwards, remembering where most of his nutrition was, and he ran it barefoot. So unbelievable. So that's the kind of woman my mum is, right? To run races with people like that. I have the army of children coming to visit me. Nicole, darling, could you please take Ella downstairs? Mummy is on a very important call.
Can I?
Are you okay for them to say hi?
Hi.
Say hello.
Come on, Ella.
You can say a quick hello, but 1 minute, okay? Because Mummy said, please give me some time. You want to say hi?
Hello.
Hi.
Let me unmute everyone. Where is everyone?
All right, there you go. There you know.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wait, I wasted all my strength just to get her up here.
Wow, I know you meant to go to the bath. That's why.
Oh, come
You're a level too high.
Oh, bless.
Okay. Sorry, everybody.
So you weren't lying about. You weren't making up stories about the children. We got to see them.
There you go. There you go. Yes. So my mum got sick, and that almost took it out of me. And then after having to look after the club in London with all the staff here, be in Dublin whenever I could be, which meant having to fly the whole family over, because I am still breastfeeding that child who doesn't want to stop. I've tried everything. Also with having the children, and I was also developing my spa brand, Eden Organic, has flourished out, and the name has changed because we decided to call our spa in Dublin, well, the health club is called Eden One, but the spa is called Eden Elements. So I was developing my spa brand at the time. I was getting very passionate. All this, it was almost 2 years, 18 months of research into the products I'd already developed, and they're all just sitting there. We had seen some incredible results from the work that we'd already done, and I wanted to develop, maybe it will still happen, the best, cleanest spa brand in the world. So I was doing that as well, and then my mom got sick, and because there's many of us siblings, but we're all over the world, so it was just inevitable. It came down to me to look after my mum through this, and so I also had to then find time to spend, oh my goodness, how many appointments at Charing Cross Hospital and sitting in the chemo suite, and it was just awful. So sorry, 1 second, Nicola, you need to take Ella downstairs, okay? Sorry guys.
This way, not up.
Sweetheart, do you mind closing the door when you go out this time?
Don't apologise there, it's fine.
Yes, this is my life.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nicole, my love. I'm very grateful. Yes, so that really took me completely down to the rock bottom of believing in myself, what I could do. I just didn't have enough time in the day anyhow. And then it just seemed like such a blow already. Like all of a sudden we were told we had to close our club in Dublin. It was open for a month. You know, we hadn't made enough money yet to keep any of our staff on. So all these incredible staff, we had like the cream of the crop of, you know, everyone from spa therapists to bartenders who won world awards, and chefs, Michelin star chefs, and incredible instructors who literally had to all be laid off. I cried a lot of tears over that. Just broke my heart, and I really hope that, well, we have heard now we can open that club again on the 10th of August. At that point, I really hope that we can salvage, you know, whatever staff we can. So that was a big blow. And then 3 days later, is that three? Well, a week, 3 working days. It was the weekend, and then 3 working days later, we were told we had to close Eden London down. And it's just been a whirlwind of, you know, things that we working really hard towards, and sacrificing so much, and really multitasking and wearing 50 different hats in a day just to get through everything they need to get through, to nothing.
I had heard, was it a fitness club owner who said it had taken him 10 years to build his business, and 10 days to shut everything down. Absolutely terrible. How did you manage to stay sane during this whole, I mean, everything? Because you had the business going on, you had your mum who you had to take care of, you had the family, the children as well. How did you manage to stay sane?
Wow. Maybe you'll get quite honest here, because maybe that's what will really help women. It's no point, it's not like, you know, I don't want to be like an Instagram page where all you see is the greatness of one person that just doesn't exist. You know, everyone has real struggles to go through, and it's just at those key pinnacle points in life where you can make a good decision. Doesn't mean to say that you always make a good decision, you know, and it doesn't mean to say that making that good decision is easy. Like, there's so much struggle at the moment, and the last 2 years have been an unbelievable struggle. Sometimes I can't even believe I'm still sitting here. It's been really hard. If I'm honest, the first week was maybe the hardest week of my life. Not being shot at, held up, beaten up. Not having my life almost taken away from me. That first week of lockdown almost killed me. It was the most toughest thing. I mean, I went from everything from, you know, I have to say that we have this beautiful nanny who was helping us look after Ella, because Nikki was at school and I was desperately trying to do 40 jobs at the same time. And I tried to do it on my own, very unsuccessfully. My children were so important to me and I really wanted to give them that really complete attention. Well, it was not complete. So I was completely sleep deprived and really stressed. And this wonderful Mary Poppins walked into my life, and she literally transformed things for me. So I had her, and I'd only had her for maybe 6 months. I don't even know what time it is now. 6 months, maybe 6 months we had her. And had this beautiful woman who'd been cleaning for us for years. You know, she had taken care of a very strong woman who would come in here and, you know, kind of sort things out and bring this joy into my life. 3 times a week. I didn't have to worry about cleaning my floors or washing or any of that jazz. And suddenly my mom got sick. Maggie, my beautiful cleaner, also got breast cancer. She had to, you know, not come at all anymore. Of course, Mariana, my beautiful nanny, couldn't come because her husband was still having to work in the city. We couldn't take a chance with me nursing my mum. And so I went from, you know, suddenly having to become full-time chef, like everyone at home, husband who'd not been around for 2 years, suddenly there all the time, very hungry man. You know, 2 children, ravenous, like hollow legs. I'm always cooking, like 3 full meals a day. I'm very fastidious about what I feed my children as well. So it will only ever be organic food. A few of the treats are not, but I've checked the ingredients anyhow. You know, so I would never get a pizza that'd been in the freezer and feed it to them. I just wouldn't do that. Like everything would be made from scratch. Loads of vegetables. This stuff all takes loads of prepping time. I've had to really overhaul my thinking and embrace how I do things, because I can't spend, you know, 2 hours making one meal. It's impossible. Cleaning, hello, like toilets get very dirty with children. Yeah, I won't venture anywhere else, but you know, that's down to me. I don't think anyone else here is going to help clean the toilet. That's my job. Floors, oh, you know, the dishwasher, how many times I just stack that thing and unload that thing every day. I'm just grateful I don't have to wash all those dishes. And then homeschooling. Where on the planet for the time? Oh my goodness.
Listen, I think Grace can be a savior here for you. She can, do you want to explain a little bit what you do, Grace?
Yeah, no, I have 3 children as well. And I got to the point where I just say to everyone, cleaning the house, being a parent, being a teacher, running a business, they're all really big jobs in their own right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had to like scale back and just, they're lucky it's the dishes, the dinner, a little bit of cleaning, homeschool meets business, and that's it. I'm not trying to do anything else anymore.
That's it. Well, I mean, in that first week, here I am trying to do everything, right?
Yeah.
I try to clean the house every single day, and homeschool, and nursery assistant, because Ella wants my attention and wants to play, you know, Peppa Pig puzzles, while Nikki has to do calculus. You know, I have to do a Google lesson quickly, like, how do I do the sum? Okay, quickly back to Peppa Pig.
The 5-minute mum. Get the book, The 5-Minute Mum, with these.
I have it.
Yeah.
I have it. That is what transformed my experience. Like, okay, by Friday, I was crying a lot. I was praying a lot. I was like, please, God, talk to me. I am too tired to hear you. Don't make it a code, right? I don't want another puzzle. Just tell me what I have to do. Make it easy for me to understand. And then he just showed me, a friend of mine had said to me, get this book. I bought it a while back, right? I hadn't opened the covers. He just showed me that book. I was like, okay, I get it. So now Saturday morning is cleaning day. Nothing gets cleaned out. Oh, the dishes, the kitchen is kept spotless, but I cannot steam floors as well as vacuum 5 days a week. Washing, when the bucket's full, we'll throw a wash in. You know, everything just had to change. Everyone's minds just had to go, we just have to re-embrace how this is going to work. In the beginning truthfully, I was very angry at the situation because I had to shelve Eden Elements. I had to shelve all of my research, all my products. There had been products in production, not production line, but they were being tested. I had products that were in research development. And I've put a lot of money into that project, and I just had to go, stop. Like, I don't know if we can continue this, but we can't continue it now. And that broke my heart. And I literally, every time I see all my samples sitting here, I could just sit there and sniff them going, oh, one day I'll get to make this beautiful product for everybody else. So in the beginning, I was very angry about the whole turn of events. And I also smelt a lot of red herrings that didn't make sense to me. Like, the statistics didn't add up. You know, the decisions that were being made, they kept saying, we have to follow the real science. Like, when you hear that, you know that there's a little bit of BS behind it. Because all the real scientists were coming out and speaking, and doctors were coming out and speaking. They're all being censored. And I was like, what is going on? And so for me, the biggest thing that I've had to do is pray. If I can pick two things that have helped me through this, it's prayer and exercise. If I didn't get a time to escape one day, I mean, in that first week, I didn't get a single chance, not even a moment to sit down and eat. By the Friday, I ran away. I ran out the door. And I ran. I don't like running. I really don't like running. I ran really fast for 2 hours. I couldn't walk for 3 days. I didn't want to come home. I thought if someone could watch me coming back to my front door, they would have thought that I was cooked in the brain, because I was like, I don't want to go back. It's like, keep running. Oh, I have to cook the dinner. It's like, open the door. Don't open the door. So I've just had to rejig everything. A lot of prayer, a lot of really listening to the guidance. And that means if you want to listen, you have to be still. And I wasn't being still. I was being frantic, like trying to be everything to everybody. No time for stillness, and I couldn't hear anything. So yes, I just had to stop and just be still, really listen. And then even if it's 15 minutes, which is sometimes even a real push to get in the day to do some exercise, you know, I've now my daughter's school are amazing. They've now started doing 2 of the lessons in the day are live with their teacher online. And I'm like, man, I'm out of here. I'm in the garden. Get that exercise in fast. I've got 15 minutes while she's learning maths to get it in. But that's what's keeping me going, because I get that sunshine, if it's not raining, getting those endorphins going, and just having to simplify my goals. Because for someone who had so many goals and was doing so much different stuff in a day, I've now had to really scale back and also be okay with that, you know, and rather just see God really needs me for what I'm doing now. I am the best person to be homeschooling my child and to teach Ella. I'm the best person to be cooking for them. I could do with a cleaner, but I don't mind doing it. But but it's like quarter past 11 at night. I'm like, oh God, I think I might just clean the toilet, because at least there's one less thing off my list tomorrow. So it's only from a complete lack of time, not from being too posh to want to do it. I don't mind doing it, but you know, I'm just exhausted, absolutely exhausted.
Thank you so much, Claire, for being so honest and open, answering our questions and sharing your story. I'd like to open up the floor and ask if we have any questions from our members here. Sangeeta, Harjot, Christina, Kioma, Grace as well. Do you have any questions for Claire?
I do, but if anyone else has one, please go first after you. If not, I'll ask.
You go first and then I'll have a think.
First of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for being quite open about your spiritual side as well, because I feel like our community, we seem to get a lot of women in business who are very open and about their spiritual side, whether it be whatever it is. We all seem to have this kind of faith, and I just think that's really brave to sit there and say that you saw your nana, because sometimes if I was like to share a story, I feel like, can I say this there? And I love that you shared that.
Thank you.
But you said that you started, so your first job was at 14. I was just really interested about your your upbringing, I guess. What was your upbringing like?
So I grew up in South Africa. I was born in Johannesburg, and I was still in Johannesburg at the time of that experience, when I was in my last year of school. So the last year of school in South Africa is called matric. I think it might be O-levels. What might have been O-levels here? It's different now, something like that. My dad needed to move and take up a job in Port Elizabeth, which was at the end of the Garden Route, quite far away from Johannesburg. So I'd even then had quite a few challenges, because I had to suddenly up and move and change syllabus. The whole syllabus was different. But on the whole, my childhood, my parents are amazing, absolutely amazing. And they're the ones who taught me to know that I think there's very few really bad parents in the world. I think the majority of parents that really love their children and do the best that they can do in that circumstance. And so my parents taught me that. They didn't have a lot. My dad did come, his very younger childhood was a very wealthy family. His father was a builder, a developer, but due to quite severe tragedy, they'd lost everything. My mum had, parents who I'd never met her father. He wasn't really interested in family, and it was more important for them to party and to socialize and to appear, keep up their appearances. So a very different kind of introduction to my family, which made my mum and dad really value family time. And my dad was the one who taught me about God. My mum was the one who taught me to pray. And it was, even though there wasn't a lot, like I know what it is to be very hungry. There was plenty of days where there just wasn't food. And there was many more times than that I remember very clearly having to share the tin of baked beans. I really hated baked beans as a child. I don't mind them now. But as a child, that was honestly like punishment. But I remember there being a few tins of baked beans left in the cupboard, and my parents went without and allowed us as children to share that tin of baked beans. There were 4 of us. So I really do know what it was like to go hungry. I remember one of my, I want to say pet hates, that's maybe not the right words, but one of the things that really makes me feel vulnerable now is cold feet. And I think that's because when I was a child, my parents couldn't afford, new shoes all the time. We had one pair of sandals, flip-flops that we'd walk out in the garden with, and our school shoes. And those shoes had to last us, a long time. So there were very many years of my life where my feet hurt because the shoes were too small. There were holes in the bottom of them. Everyone thinks South Africa's got grand weather. The winters can be torturing, very cold. So yeah, even though we had nothing, or even though we had very little as children in terms of financial abundance, what we did have in massive abundance was love. And my parents really taught us how to communicate with each other, especially as siblings today. There's 4 of us, and we love each other profoundly. Like in this lockdown, one of the main pains of my heart is I haven't been able to see my brother in like 5 months. So because we hadn't seen each other before that for a while, then we went away, and then the lockdown happened. So I feel like I'm missing my nieces desperately, and my sister's in Singapore, and we would speak just about every day. My other brother's in South Africa, so we are a bit split up, but honest to God, if we were to choose who we'd spend our weekends with, it would still be each other.
So that's so comforting to hear, like you share your upbringing as well. And it's something that I can relate to, like having, you know, memories of having stuffing for dinner, not having any food around. How was that transition from having that kind of experience as a child to moving into running two successful, by the grace of God, successful health centres? And
amen. To that.
How is that like?
Interesting, because I obviously had the interim bit of earning actually a lot of money in the pharmaceutical industry and surgical industry. I used to earn a real packet from them. And I remember when I was obviously, I think I was 21 when I got my first job with Janssen Sealag. So in South Africa as a pharmaceutical rep, I was 21. Handed a brand spanking new car, new phone. I just never seen this stuff in my life before. And I'll very clearly remember getting my first paycheck. My mum used to work at the bank, and she phoned me. I was on the road. Back then, there was no such thing about danger of cell phones and driving. That was our job. That's how we did our business. Not to say it's good. It's really bad. But but I remember taking that call, and she could hardly talk. She was like, oh my. And I was like, Mom, what's wrong? And she was like, have you seen your bank balance? And I was like, there are so many zeros. And I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to see it. And if I look back now at how much it actually was in real terms, it was probably like £200. That was my salary, relative, right? But at that point, it was so many zeros. Rand is like a lot of zeros to the pound, right? So, yeah, I do remember a few key moments of thinking, wow, this is quite something. And then when I was living in England, I had a few moments in the beginning because I couldn't bring that much over. I had a suitcase, right? I've never been so cold in my entire life. That was the coldest winter, 2003. It snowed in November. How terrible. I didn't have a coat. I used to walk past this charity store and see this black coat with this fur lining. And it wasn't real fur. I would not do that. And it was £10 for this coat. And I was like, when am I going to be able to buy this coat, right? And I walked past that for 28 days. And I had it's a long time, I'm not going to get into that now, but a real long time in order to be able to get some money. And I remember going for 3 days without food. I was so delighted when I found a £1 coin under my car seat. And I was like, oh my God, I get to eat something today. Stopped at the petrol station on my way to a doctor, grabbed what I thought was a yogurt, jumped in the car, in the traffic, went to open that yogurt. And I was like, it was rice pudding. But it was revolting. I was so sad. I just pulled over and cried my eyes out. So yes, there's a real time, like real moments that I remember. And then I thought, well, when I get that paycheck, I just remember going to like Debenhams, M&S, buying beautiful suits, high heel shoes. I bought that £10 coat at the charity store. You know, I still had that coat for like 5 years. It was fantastic. So yes, there was a moment in time where I just spent, because I didn't have children. I didn't have, you know, a boyfriend, or, you know, I would send money back to my parents for sure, but I had more than enough. You know, my parents were still in South Africa then. But it's in times like this where actually I'm really grateful for my childhood, because I mean, there are fears I have, but not for going without. You know, I'm quite okay with, you know, being resourceful. And that's what that taught me is just to be resourceful and to, you know, we don't even need, you know, red meat more than, you know, how many times a month. I can make a really mean bean stew. The kids will lap it up. You know, it cost me £2 to make that. That it's fine by me. I really don't mind that. So yes, it's there's definitely the moments of remembering my roots.
Anyone, any other question for Claire?
You're clean now.
Claire, thank you for sharing all that. Today, I think I'm just having this really emotional day. I've heard so many stories, and it's all quite. I think I'm going to have a good cry.
Oh,
Do it.
oh, you're not the only one. I've cried a lot.
Me too.
Oh,
Oh, bless.
Because today I fell down the stairs.
you did.
Oh no! Oh, are you better now? Are you feeling better?
Are you feeling better?
Zip.
So beautiful. You have a lovely mummy, so you'll be all right.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
So what I was going to ask was, okay, I mean, you've described your current situation, how you're coping with everything, but do you think about future, work-wise? You know, do you sit and plan, or do you do anything, you know, for your business right now?
Yes, of course I do. And it's Nikki New, can you take baby, please?
No, I am baby.
Okay. It's been harder because I think that it's okay, baby. Can I come and help you
There,
afterwards, love? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I'm
Here we go.
there.
Sorry.
I'm there.
Okay. Off you go.
Sorry, Claire, I know we had said that we would finish
Don't worry.
a bit earlier, so apologies for that. I know that we were going to move on to the next section.
Well, at least you get to see the authenticity, right? So I was answering the question about the future and thinking about the business, right? So yes, of course I do. It's been hard because in the past, it's been easier to maybe predict a bit better. And I think planning now has had to be so reactionary. That's the only word I can think of. You know, we have to just work on the spur of the moment. You know, like when all of this happened, we suddenly had to go into survival mode and think about our staff and how we're going to make sure that 70 families were able to feed their families, not just us feeding ours. And then the furlough laws came in, but it was unbelievably ridiculous application process and very cloak and dagger and a lot of BS in the situation and not truthful for what they said on the news. And so the application had to be done for us in 2 different countries with 2 different sets of regulations. In the end, it didn't look like the Irish thing was going to work with the furlough. It was easier for all of them to be laid off. We didn't have money to keep them going anyhow because we had to pay up front all of these staff. And if our application gets accepted, then we will be recompensated. So for Ireland, we just didn't have the funds to do that. It was going to be quicker for them to all go on unemployment because the Irish really look after their unemployed, and it was a very quick process. They would at least get paid much quicker. For here, now the furlough laws had changed. Now they're going to change again. And, you know, we still don't know when we can open London. If they open, they're not giving us any advice as to how we can open. Will we be able to have the same amount of people in our club at the same time? Will we be able to, we'd have to be very careful about our prime time members. That's, you know, the majority of our members are over 50. You know, for us, I take this stuff seriously. It's not just about, you know, there's very little profit in what Charlie and I do because we spend a lot of money and care and time actually really looking after our members and our staff. And so, again, this is something I really had to wrap my head around because I'm usually very much in the planning process for the business. But with having to be a cook, cleaner, teacher, and everything else, there's no time for me to be involved in that really. I mean, Charlie's literally throwing me a question as I'm handling a maths lesson and cooking the dinner with my baby toe. You know, it's like, so it's very much been left down to Charlie to do the nitty gritty, all the application forms, all the admin for the side of the business. when it comes to planning, we're having to be very reactionary. We don't know what's going to happen.
And the government doesn't know either. They are also reacting to whatever little they see.
And so there's a lot of other quite, scary things as well. I don't want to get too far into that because none of us know what's going to happen. But, there was a lot of information to suggest that they were trying to change the bill in the country and all over the world, for that matter, to enforce mandatory vaccine. And you can imagine what's going to happen to me if I have to take another vaccine. It will kill me. So
I've signed the petition against. There's a petition.
I have as well.
All night crying my eyes out. I was like, what am I going to do? How do I protect my children? Where am I going to go? Do I have to leave? Do I have to have an escape route? How do we get out of the country? All of these, I know, I was like, I'm having to think about this in this modern time in London. Like, we're not living in, South Korea. We're living in London. So yes, there's been a lot of fear that's had to be managed. That is managed for me through prayer. I know that God loves us. I know that He wants good for us. And all of the words that keep coming up for me is, I have a hope for you. I want a future for you. I will turn this into good for you. And so for me, it's just about trust. How am I running my business now? Well, I probably always do run it on trust and guidance from God. Right now, that is how we are surviving. Physically, emotionally, mentally, business-wise, mother-wise, teacher-wise, wife-wise. It's like running on guidance from God, because when I hear that calming, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. I will look after you. Just stay put. Don't plan to escape just yet.
Don't run out of the door.
I know. It's like, what would we do? So it's, can we plan for the future? Yes, of course. And we should. And I said to Tani, this is always very odd, because I feel like we're having to hope for the best and plan for the worst. And it's about having to wrap our heads around still believing in the best, right? Still believing in knowing what skills we have between us, knowing that, the solidarity we have as a family, the solidarity and that inexplicable peace I have as a child of God, to know that I can turn in prayer and maybe just hide a bit under His shade, just take that break. Because if I don't take that, like, I just feel so vulnerable and so exposed and so exhausted that I don't know, I would want to plan. But at least I have those other things. And so, yes, we are planning. What it ends up being, I don't know. I mean, for my spa brand, I dream about it. I absolutely dream about taking that to market. What was it? 2 months ago, I had 3 spas that were going to open up with my brand. And now, will a spa even exist in the near future?
Listen, Claire, definitely a party when everything reopens.
Fine.
With social distancing.
It will happen. It's just a matter of time. Obviously, we can't go back to having crowds soon after all this. But yes, of course, it's all going to go back.
Absolutely.
I think it. I mean, I hope things. My prayer for this is that it's better. Yeah. Everyone's more conscious. People are more mindful of what they're doing, how they're doing it, and hopefully we just kind of are all a little bit more wiser and smarter. Yeah. And
I agree completely.
Even simple things like going shopping or getting on the tube. I always, felt really good, really great that I was living in London. I could go to National Gallery or go to Central London. Yeah. And now I think I'm going to feel even more grateful that I can do those things.
We've just bought an electric scooter, so we're zipping around places and, not getting from A to B quite fast and not damaging the environment in the same time. So. Yes.
Yeah. Harjit, do you have any questions for Claire?
No, I don't have any questions, but very inspiring and you're very truthful in what you said. There's so many things I've picked up from you and learned actually.
Thank you.
Energy and just so much, that you're such a strong person going through so much, and just that positivity. And for a woman entrepreneur, I think it's quite challenging. I don't have kids, but like the way you're managing everything, and I see my sister doing the same thing. I give you credit. It's amazing. It's so inspiring.
You.
Absolutely inspiring.
Thank you so much. That means so much. Honestly, it really does.
Claire, thank you so much for joining us. If you have to leave us to look after the children, please do. We will understand. We really do appreciate you coming and sharing your story, but we will stay connected. We will reconnect when we get a chance. I think everyone.
Yeah, I've got to see this health centre. I live in Ealing, but I haven't been. So I'm going to bring hubby and we're going to...
Grace, your face is so familiar. I swear I know you from somewhere. So I will work it out at some point, but it doesn't matter because now you're going to come and see us anyhow there. So as soon as we're open, I really hope it's not August.
No, me too.
But
it's not that far away when you think about it. It's only...
Ariane. It's so far away.
I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you so much. It was really, yeah, I've learned a lot. Thank you for being so open and honest and sharing all of that.
I'm very honoured. Thank you so much for your kind words. It does mean a lot. There's many times that in the capacity of especially mother that I'm like, oh my God, am I doing enough? Am I good enough? Am I, you know? So to have these kind words is really fills my heart. And I've learned over the years that, how can I say? There's very few people who are just living the Instagram stories, all of us, especially women, we're faced with so many modern struggles. And so if we're going to get together and learn from each other, it's so important to be honest.
Ta-da! The Gaia Network.
Yeah. Because we can share in our strength then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, guys.
Thank you very much, Claire. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am going to go find out what happened to my husband.
we love you, Claire. We love you, Claire.
I love you too. Ariane, thank you so much for this, honestly.
Thank you. We speak soon.
The time we will. God bless. Bye-bye.
Claire. Ladies, how much time do we have, Grace?
8 minutes.
8 minutes. Grace?
Yeah, that was so amazing. Oh my gosh. Such an inspiring story. My cells are vibrating all over the place, just taking all of that in. And also I feel like, once upon a time I would have felt like I can't have a conversation with someone like that. She's doing so well, and so to be in a space where we could, she's just a lovely normal person.
Yeah, so down to her.
Yeah, that was really, I think that's really I think that could be a real big shift for all of us, It's the only difference is what? Nothing.
From sharing, you're absolutely right, Grace, from sharing where she comes from to where she is and the daily the normal struggles as well, and this is why when I met her, I was simply amazed, and we have stayed connected. She's an amazing woman. So I'm glad that she was able to share her story with you all.
Yeah. And thank you so much, everyone, for showing up and giving your energy to
Thank you for including us.
Absolutely.
It's amazing, and it's so good to see you all again. And
I know it is. Harjit, hello, long time.
Hello, I know.
And do you know what? I have to find some pictures of my family, but you look like my mom, my aunts. Such familiarity. I'm just sitting there looking at you thinking,
all one family.
And I have all these multi-personalities flowing everywhere, is it?
yeah.
And the face, huh? Time traveling everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, Sangeeta, like, have a good cry. You know, if that's how you do it.
From time to time.
Me too.
Yeah.
You know what? It's also the moon energy at the minute.
Oh, what's
Some of
happening
us,
with the moon?
it's full moon tomorrow, so some of us do feel that energy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Let it out.
No, no
So-
wonder.
Let it out.
Harjit, tell us about the moon. It's what does it do to our emotions and
It
feelings?
hypes our emotions for some of us. And now it's going into the cusp of a Scorpio. So when it goes into a Scorpio, it's very sexual as well, and it's very emotional as well.
Ooh.
So it's like two things. Yeah. So just let it out. Just be. And also with all these emotions rolling, I think with COVID as well, some of us are trying to sort of hold ourselves as well, isn't it? And we're just trying to keep things in that box. And now it's just
Yes.
like, open that box, you know.
Like control, you want to control because we don't have to,
Absolutely.
can't. So
Let loose.
Wow, I think
Be.
that's quite
I'm heading out to town now.
with a glass of wine, maybe, Sangeeta.
Absolutely, my high heels, everything, lipstick. Yeah, absolutely. Although no one's gonna come close to me to smell the perfume. It's like 2 meters away.
It's okay. It makes you feel happy.
Yes.
Yes, I actually, before any Zoom meeting, I put my makeup on. I make sure I'm dressed for the call, and I put also some perfume because it makes,
which one?
well, it depends. Ladies,
I haven't really used any perfumes since the lockdown. Maybe tomorrow I will do that, or maybe tonight when I head out.
Actually,
I haven't used perfumes for a long time, and I don't really use perfume so much, but I went on a bike ride from where I live to Isleworth, and I just sprayed loads of perfume just because I wanted to ride past and people to go,
Yeah, sounds good.
so did it work? Grace, did it work?
I didn't notice anyone, but in my head, I was riding in the wind and everyone was going, oh, she smells good.
sweet.
I'm sure it happened.
So I think we can wrap it up. Thank you so much, Harjat, for joining us, Christina, and Sangeeta for
you.
joining us live. And
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Fiona
you.
as well.
Thank you, Ariane. Thank you as well for, you know, like being so I really admire the way that you can approach people and start conversations and build a bond and a connection and bring them in. It's like, it's very inspiring to watch and learn.
Being so organized.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is like so organized with Arya, and I'm like, how did she do it?
Listen, I will, like Claire said, there's some days where everything goes out of the window, and that's okay. And that's something that I've accepted.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm not perfect. Far from it. Very far from it.
99%.
think you are.
Ariane, can we stay on just to debrief when we say bye? Yeah. Sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So our next meetup is, let's have a look. It will be online on the 21st of May, I think. We'll keep everyone posted. But until then, please do stay connected.
Yes. You will make sure we do, so that's fine. We don't have to do
The
anything.
next event is another Claire. So my friend Claire, who has a skincare brand, had a very successful skincare brand, and then has her like a production company which she runs with her husband, and she recently got an honour from the Queen.
Ooh.
So yeah, she'll be on in May.
Brilliant.
Cool.
Fingers
Lovely.
crossed.
Amazing.
Fingers
Oh, wait. Sounds amazing.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
See ya. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye, Harjit. Bye, Sangeeta.
See ya,
Bye,
everybody.
Bye.
And then I guess we should
Let me